Have you ever felt a connection so deep that it transcended words, beyond attraction, beyond even love as we know it? A bond that didn't just touch your heart, but reached something far more sacred, far more ancient, your soul. In a world obsessed with chemistry and charm, we often mistake emotional highs for spiritual truths. But when someone is truly meant for your soul, the signs are subtle, profound, and life-changing. This isn't about fairy tales. It's about inner awakening, mirrored through another human being. When someone is meant for your soul and not just your heart, they do more than bring warmth, comfort, or attraction. They become a mirror, one that does not simply reflect what you want to see, but one that reveals what lies hidden beneath the surface of your personality. It is easy to fall in love with an idea, with the illusion of who someone is or what they can give you emotionally. The heart, romantic and impulsive, often longs to be filled, to be soothed, to be desired. But the soul moves deeper. It does not crave satisfaction. It yearns for truth, integration, and wholeness. And when someone is meant for your soul, they become the catalyst for that wholeness. Even if their presence at times feels unsettling, this kind of person does not just align with your dreams or fantasies. They reach into the unconscious realm where your true self resides. The self that includes your hidden desires, forgotten wounds, unresolved traumas, and untapped potential. They may not consciously try to trigger you, but their energy naturally brushes against the edges of your internal conflicts. They hold a mysterious familiarity, as if they've been written into the archetypal map of your life long before you met. They call forth your inner world, the chaos and the clarity, and that presence asks you to face yourself honestly. Where others may comfort your illusions, this person reflects your truths, even the ones you would rather not see. Such a person becomes an unexpected teacher. They awaken your awareness not by giving you lessons, but by being the lesson. Their reactions, their timing, the way they listen, or the way they challenge you. It all seems to touch something ancient inside you. When you're around them, you begin to notice patterns in your own behavior that had previously gone unnoticed. You observe yourself more deeply. Your defenses, your projections, your inner child trying to be loved in the only way it knows how. They don't necessarily speak your language, but they speak your symbolism. And in that symbolic mirror, your unconscious is called into dialogue with your conscious mind. Often there is an uncanny synchronicity in how such a person enters your life. They appear during transitions, spiritual awakenings, emotional upheaval, or moments of profound self-questing. It's as if the universe or some deeper part of your psyche summoned them not just for affection. And while the heart might feel joy, pain, longing, or comfort in their presence, the soul feels movement, an internal shift, a stirring that suggests something sacred is taking place. You may find yourself simultaneously drawn and unsettled, inspired and disrupted. And it is precisely this duality that signals there do not simply reflect the version of you that you show the world. They reflect the parts that are still forming, the parts that are still fragmented. They show you your longing for union, not just with another, but with yourself. They reveal where you've abandoned yourself for approval, where you've buried your power to stay comfortable, where you feared your own light because it threatens your familiar darkness. Their presence becomes a mirror not of your ego's image, but of your soul's architecture. And the more time you spend in their orbit, the more you begin to see how much of your life has been driven by unconscious currents. With them, the curtain lifts, and you are invited to witness your own psyche in motion. This person doesn't soothe your shadows with platitudes. They challenge you to explore them. Their love doesn't come dressed in perfect understanding, but in deep resonance that defies logic. You might find that your connection with them transcends emotion entirely. It touches the archetypal. They may reflect back to you the animus or anima within the masculine in your feminine or the feminine in your masculine, drawing you into a dance of internal integration. And in this mirroring, you do not simply fall in love with them. You begin to remember and reclaim the forgotten parts of yourself. Growth is rarely a comfortable experience, and yet, When someone is truly meant for your soul, not just your heart, the journey of becoming more fully yourself feels guided and inevitable in their presence. There is a silent encouragement they bring, not necessarily through words or overt motivation, but through who they are and how they reflect your potential. Their very existence in your life awakens something dormant inside you, something that has been waiting for permission to grow. This is not the kind of relationship where you are endlessly coddled or pacified. Rather, it is one in which you are called forth even when the path feels uncertain or difficult. When someone touches the soul rather than just the heart, their presence challenges the status quo of your inner world. They do not allow you to remain in the familiar patterns of self-sabotage, avoidance, or stagnation. Not because they demand change, but because the space between you carries an energy that compels transformation. You begin to realize that parts of yourself are being gently, or sometimes abruptly brought to light. Old wounds may resurface, not to cause pain, but to be finally acknowledged and healed. You begin to feel an inner shift, an expansion, as if your soul is stretching beyond its previous limits to accommodate the depth this connection evokes. The growth they inspire is often not linear. It comes in spirals and waves. There are moments of clarity, of deep self-recognition, and then moments of confusion or resistance. But even in those chaotic spaces, there is a strange peace, a knowing that this unfolding is necessary. You do not feel coerced to grow. You feel magnetized toward it. There is a difference between someone trying to fix you and someone whose presence makes you want to heal yourself. The former feels like pressure. The latter feels like inspiration. And this person meant for your soul never claims authority over your transformation. They simply hold the mirror long enough for you to recognize what you already knew deep down was waiting to emerge. With them, growth becomes something more than self-improvement. It becomes integration. You begin to pull together the fragmented pieces of who you are. You are no longer only identifying with your persona, the mask you wear for the world, but beginning to acknowledge and embrace the totality of your being, your fears, your desires, your wounds, your dreams. This person does not define you, but they help you redefine your relationship with yourself. Their role is not that of a savior, but of a symbolic guide, a presence that activates your own inner work, your own journey toward individuation. You may find that you become more expressive, more honest, more intuitive in their presence, not because they demand it, but because the energy between you invites authenticity. The masks begin to fall away, not just in your relationship with them, but in your life as a whole. You start to show up differently in the world. You might take risks you had avoided, speak truths you had silenced, or make choices that align more closely with your deeper value. This is the quiet revolution of soul-centered connection. It does not just touch the emotional landscape. It rearranges your internal compass. And yet none of this growth feels forced. Even when it is painful, there is a sense that it is right. You can feel your spirit responding, your psyche reorganizing, your energy becoming more aligned. This is how you know it's not merely infatuation or dependency. It is transformation. You are not being asked to lose yourself to keep them. You are being invited to become more of yourself simply because they are there. They are not your escape from reality. They are a mirror of what reality could become if you stopped hiding from your own depth. Their presence gives you courage not because they offer you all the answers, but because their existence affirms that your evolution is not only possible but sacred. When someone is meant for your soul, silence between you ceases to be an empty space. It becomes a sacred presence in a world that is often dominated by noise, distraction, and the incessant need to fill every void with conversation or affirmation. Finding someone with whom silence feels not only safe but nourishing is a rare and powerful sign. This is not the silence of distance or disconnection, but the kind that speaks in quiet frequencies, inviting stillness rather than anxiety. It's in that space that you feel most seen, most held, and most understood. Not because words have been spoken, but because something deeper has been acknowledged. When you sit with someone who resonates with your soul, you are not performing. You are not trying to entertain, explain, or persuade. You are simply being, and that is enough. There is a shared comfort that arises from knowing that you do not have to wear the masks you have grown soused to. Those worn in conversations where you're not really heard, in interactions where you're not really felt. Their presence allows you to retreat into yourself without fear of being lost or misunderstood. In fact, it's within that quiet companionship that you come to discover more of who you really are. This kind of silence is not passive. It is active in its presence. It holds a strange power, almost as if the unspoken is more meaningful than anything that could be articulated. You begin to sense that this person does not need to decode your moods or ask probing questions to understand what you are feeling. There is an emotional attunement, a kind of psychic resonance that allows for mutual recognition without verbal confirmation. This person, by simply existing beside you, communicates volumes. Their stillness, their breath, their grounded being. It all contributes to a wordless dialogue that feels as rich and layered as poetry. There is a deep emotional safety in knowing that your silence does not push them away. Many fear being quiet in relationships because they equate silence with distance, boredom, or emotional threat. But with this person, silence is not a threat. It is an invitation. It is a signal that you are safe enough to let your guard down, to let the layers fall away, and to simply rest. Rest. Not just physically, it's the rest that comes from not needing to be anything other than what you are in that moment. In these quiet spaces, something even more mysterious begins to unfold. The inner world starts to speak without the distraction of language. You begin to feel your emotions more clearly, to notice the subtleties of your own thoughts and sensations. And somehow this person beside you seems to be tuned into that same channel. This mutual stillness becomes a kind of communion where two souls are simply present with each other, unguarded and unafraid. This is how you begin to know that their connection to you is not merely emotional or circumstantial. It is archetypal. It belongs to something much older, deeper, and more profound than romantic compatibility. They become a quiet witness to your being, and in doing so, offer one of the greatest gifts anyone can offer: acceptance without condition, love without the need for noise, presence without the pressure to perform. In their silence, you meet yourself more clearly, and in your silence, they are invited to do the same. There is no fear of judgment in these moments, no panic to fill the void, only a gentle unfolding of self in the presence of someone who already sees what lies beneath. Conflict in most relationships is treated as something to be feared, something to be minimized or avoided altogether. It becomes a sign that something is wrong or broken, but when someone is meant for your soul, rather than merely your heart, conflict takes on a different shape. It ceases to be a wall that divides and instead becomes a portal that leads deeper into understanding, connection, and transformation. The presence of conflict does not signal danger. It signals the presence of truth attempting to surface. It becomes the meeting point between two psyches, each carrying their own wounds, projections, fears, and hopes attempting to merge without losing individuality. When a person is connected to you on the level of the soul, the relationship becomes a sacred ground for growth, and growth is rarely without friction. Arguments or misunderstandings are no longer about proving who is right or wrong. They become reflections of something deeper within each person: unmet needs, unspoken fears, buried traumas, or unconscious patterns that are being mirrored back by the other. The soul knows that integration happens not through avoidance but through confrontation, not violent or destructive, but honest and purposeful. With such a person, disagreements are not battles. They are invitations to dive beneath the surface. There is an emotional safety present that allows conflict to be navigated without annihilation. You don't fear that their relationship will shatter with every difficult conversation because, at the core, There is mutual respect and a shared commitment to truth. Even in heated moments, there's a thread of awareness that neither of you is the enemy. There is a deeper recognition, perhaps not always consciously, that the other is helping you face yourself. This doesn't make the pain of conflict disappear, but it transforms its purpose. Conflict becomes a teacher rather than a destroyer. This kind of soul-aligned connection often demands emotional maturity. It reveals where your ego still seeks to control, where your pride resists surrender, where your fear of abandonment tries to dominate communication. You are shown the parts of yourself that react instead of respond, defend instead of receive, and the other person is shown the same. Yet rather than using each other's vulnerabilities as weapons, you begin to learn how to hold space for each other's wounds. The arguments become less about being right and more about being real. The intention is no longer to win, but to understand. There's a shared knowing that whatever is surfacing is here to be healed, not hidden. And sometimes, even in the middle of conflict, there is an almost surreal sense of connection, as if some higher part of both of you is observing the dynamic and guiding you through it. You may find yourself saying things you didn't know you needed to say, finally articulating truths that had long been buried. You may notice emotional patterns that have played out in past relationships, defensiveness, withdrawal, anger, and realize that this is the first time you are being given the chance to move beyond them. This is the work of the soul, not the heart. The heart seeks harmony. The soul seeks truth, even when it's messy. The beauty of such a connection is that on the other side of conflict, there is always a deepening. Something shifts. You see each other more clearly. You trust each other more deeply. And perhaps most importantly, you trust yourself more because you have walked through the fire and discovered not only that you survived, but that something within you evolved. These conflicts, rather than weakening the bond, begin to forge a new kind of intimacy, one not rooted in perfection or ease, but in a shared willingness to face whatever arises. That is how you know the connection transcends the surface. It is not only meant for your emotions, it is meant for your evolution. The presence of someone meant for your soul is not always loud, dramatic, or overtly romantic. Often it is subtle, quietly consistent in a world that glorifies fleeting intensity. When someone touches your soul, their consistency becomes a kind of spiritual balm. You do not question where you stand with them. Their words and actions align not as a performance to win your affection, but as a natural extension of who they are. In their presence, you begin to feel the rare comfort of reliability, something your spirit may have long craved in a world marked by unpredictability and emotional volatility. This consistency is not born out of obligation or fear of losing you. Rather, it comes from a deep sense of alignment with their own truth. They are not consistent to impress you. They are consistent because they have arrived at a place within themselves where their inner world and outer behavior no longer contradict each other. And that congruence, that internal harmony, makes you feel safe. It is not the safety of control or possession, but the safety of knowing that someone is who they say they are, and they show up as such again and again, regardless of shifting moods or external pressures. What's remarkable is how this consistency brings your nervous system to rest. You no longer live in hypervigilance, waiting for the next withdrawal, the next mood swing, the next wave of uncertainty. Instead, you begin to relax, to breathe fully in their presence. The relational anxiety you may have grown accustomed to starts to fade, and in its place comes a slow, steady unfolding of your true self. You're no longer performing for love. You're no longer trying to interpret mixed signals. You're simply allowed to be. This kind of grounding presence has a profound effect on your inner landscape. It stabilizes not only the relationship, but also your sense of identity within it. Their reliability builds a quiet trust, and this trust allows intimacy to deepen not through grand gestures, but through the accumulation of small moments. The text when they say they will text the call they promise to return. The emotional availability they offer when you need to speak, and the way they listen without trying to fix you. These moments might seem insignificant to someone looking for drama or passion, But for a soul that has known instability, they are everything. They become the evidence that love does not have to be chaotic to be real. That presence over time becomes a sanctuary. In their steadiness, you also begin to mirror the same energy. You become more anchored, less reactive. You start to embody the same qualities of trustworthiness and emotional consistency. It becomes a mutual rhythm. Two souls moving in tandem, not because they are the same, but because they are attuned. This doesn't mean perfection, but even when there is a knowing that they will show up again and again, not out of obligation, but because the connection itself matters deeply to them. You begin to realize that this consistency is love in its most grounded form. Not the kind that makes your heart race and your mind spiral, but the kind that allows your whole being to settle. You're no longer waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're not living in the fantasy of what they could be. You're grounded in their reality of who they are, and in that space your soul breathes easier. You stop asking for proof of love because their presence is the proof. And that presence is not sporadic or conditional. It is enduring, rooted in the quiet strength of emotional maturity and the willingness to walk alongside you, not just in moments of joy, but in the daily, sometimes mundane, rituals of life and relationship. Such steadiness allows you to face life's unpredictability with greater courage. Because when your soul is met with someone who shows up again and again, not only do you feel less alone, you begin to believe in the possibility of love that doesn't leave when things get hard. This kind of connection doesn't promise constant bliss, but it does offer constancy. And that more than fleeting romance is what the soul craves when it recognizes its mirror in another. When someone is meant for your soul, they don't merely support your journey. They actively encourage the unfolding of your truest self. Their presence in your life is not to complete you, nor to mold you into something that aligns with their ideals. Instead, they become a mirror through which you begin to see the parts of yourself that have long been hidden, feared, or neglected. They do not shy away from your darkness, nor are they intimidated by your depth. Rather, they stand beside you as you dive into yourself, holding space, without judgment, as you shed the layers that were never really you. This kind of soul-aligned relationship functions as a crucible for transformation, not because the other person is fixing you, but because they see you clearly. And that clarity, when offered with compassion, has a power far greater than correction or instruction. In being truly seen, you are invited to remember who you are beneath the projections, the people-pleasing, the survival mechanisms, and the masks worn to earn approval. Their gaze is not demanding. It is awakening. It does not push, but it gently stirs something ancient and essential within you, calling it forward with quiet confidence. You begin to notice that around this person, you are less inclined to hide. The vulnerability that once felt like risk now feels like liberation. You speak truths you didn't know you were holding. You express long-buried desires, forgotten dreams, and unhealed wounds. Not because you expect them to carry these things for you, but because in their presence you feel strong enough to carry them yourself. Their support does not create dependency. It cultivates sovereignty. They do not save you. They remind you that you have always had the capacity to save yourself. They don't only love who you are now, they love who you are becoming. And because of that, they challenge you in the most sacred ways. They call you out when you shrink. They lovingly disrupt your self-deception. They reflect back to you the habits that keep you small, not to shame you, but to awaken you. This type of connection is not always easy. It is not always soft, but it is real. It holds space for both your divinity and your human. They remind you in word and in presence that your evolution matters. Being with someone meant for your soul feels like walking a spiral path inward. You go deeper not only into the relationship but into yourself. You begin to notice the courage growing in your chest, the confidence returning to your voice, the clarity in your thoughts. You find yourself dreaming bigger, shedding old limitations, and stepping into roles and responsibilities you once thought were beyond you. Not because they led you there, but because their presence created the inner conditions that allowed your own potential to rise to the surface. Their encouragement is not always verbal. Often it is in the way they look at you, the way they believe in your growth even when you falter. It's in their patience as you stumble, their silence when you need space, and their honesty when you are avoiding your own truth. They do not demand perfection, nor do they seek to rescue you from discomfort. Instead, they honor your process. They trust in your ability to navigate it. And that trust becomes the foundation upon which you begin to trust yourself more deeply. In this kind of connection, love is not a cage. It is not a contract of sameness or submission. It is a sanctuary for transformation. You begin to see that love, true love, does not ask you to stay the same, to be worthy of belonging. Instead, it celebrates your unfolding. It walks with you through the unknown. It embraces the messiness of growth. And perhaps most importantly, it whispers again and again in moments of doubt and in moments of power, you are enough, even as you become more. When someone is meant for your soul, it is not a feeling alone that guides you, but a deep resonance, a knowing that cannot be rationalized or forced. They do not arrive to complete you, but to reflect the parts of you waiting to a through conflict. They deepen connection through consistency. They build sanctuary through silence. They echo understanding. And through every moment, mundane or magnificent, they call you home to yourself. Such a bond does not demand possession. It invites expansion. It does not cling to certainty. It dances with the unknown. In their presence, you are not merely loved, you are remembered, not by them, but by your own soul. That is how you know they are, not just for your heart,